Next week's state budget will include funding for a GPS monitoring system to track sex offenders who've been released from prison. But it's not the only technological advance police have in their armoury. Taskforce Argos has been shutting down major international child pornography operations on the internet. But now they're finding the battleground is much closer to home. Siobhan Barry reports.
Deep inside Queensland's police headquarters, officers at Taskforce Argos are working around the clock, tracking the trading and posting of child pornography on international websites, networks and chat rooms.
The images are themselves crime scene photos because within each image it's a child being abused. Taskforce Argos' main aim is not just the images but to find out the identity of the children and stop the abuse that sits behind the photo.
Detective Acting Superintendent Cameron Harsley is the Child Safety Director.
It's definitely worth a look. It looks like he's based out of Brisbane.
Over recent years I always said that I'd never be shocked at new images that come on board, but unfortunately the images are getting more shocking in some instances.
In January last year, as part of Operation Gatekeeper, Taskforce Argos began investigating a child pornography website with 44,000 images posted by thousands of users. By law, police can't show us the more offensive material on the site.
We had just over 21,000 unique users that accessed that website, and that equated to users in 100 countries across the world.
Officers traced the website to a house on the Gold Coast. They arrested a 22-year-old man who's alleged to have administered the site through a server in the Netherlands.
It's a significant homegrown website that we haven't seen before in Queensland. It brings the offence that we always saw as it's an overseas issue to our back door here in Australia. We are part of a problem in regard to training of CEM, child exploitation material, and Gatekeeper goes to show us that it sits in our backyard as well.
Are there more homegrown child exploitation websites operating out of Queensland?
I'm not naive enough to think there is not. I think in time we will see administrators popping up here in Australia that are using the infrastructure from overseas to administer such websites.
The idea that we have networks operating in this state is pretty concerning. It's a bit alarming from our point of view. But I guess it's not a huge surprise given the fact that we know that the online network operates across state boundaries, across countries.
Elizabeth Fraser is Queensland's Commissioner for Children. Each year her office receives reports of children suspected of being used in the production of child pornography.
For very young children we know that in some instances they may not be aware quite of what's occurring, but some are very aware and some are very highly traumatised by that experience.
Taskforce Argos identified 29 children from the photos on the Gold Coast-based website, including a boy from Queensland who's since been removed from harm. According to the Taskforce, about 40% of the child pornography offenders they arrest have been actively abusing children to produce photos and videos for the websites they visit.
If it's a localised website or it has a local trend, will mean that people making images may be local. So in other words, children within Queensland may be at higher risk. So when we have a local or a homegrown website, we always are worried about the images that we find.
According to criminologist Professor Stephen Smallbone, the motives for creating this material can vary.
It's perhaps not always driven by purely sexual motivations, if you like. There can be commercial motivations, for example, and also social motivations. So people may achieve some kind of status within certain subcultural groups to be on the basis of being able to provide groups of people with images.
Rapid advances in technology over the past decade have made it easier for those offenders to establish the sites, and website administrators are trying to avoid detection by operating the sites through different offshore servers. But Cameron Harsley says police too are making the most of advances in technology.
There'll be new technology will come onto the market or a new piece of hardware, and usually within a very short period of time we have the ability to work around it or work with that piece of hardware. Police across the world now have technology where we can find you, we can follow the images, we can see what websites you're accessing, We're online ourselves all the time, so there is no security.
But Professor Stephen Smallbone says policing child pornography shouldn't be left up to law enforcement agencies alone.
I think the prevention effort should also involve those responsible for organising internet and online systems. So internet service providers, for example, are in a position where they can take significant steps to control the traffic of certain kinds of material.
Elizabeth Fraser agrees that addressing the crime requires a wider effort. She says children are at higher risk during family breakdowns, and parents too have a role to play.
Sometimes parents are not focusing in on those risk mitigation strategies in the way that they need to, but ultimately if we're going to prevent things, people need to be aware and they need to be vigilant about what their young kids are doing.
Are you winning the battle?
I think we are. I think it's always hard to gauge the unknown, what we don't know, but I think Gatekeeper proves to me that we still have the ability. We still be able to target people. We're still able to save children from this type of offence. So I think, we're winning the battle, but the battle will always be there.
Siobhan Barry reporting.